I'm Jade, Flying Flamingo.
I am Krista Cupcake.
Welcome to our show.
Somewhere by the emerald sea, where the moon and water meet, somewhere close to harmony, when the world is sound asleep. Something's gonna bring the change, journeys we are meant to take. Something at the edge of space, calling us to fly away. Don't you be afraid, everything will change. You and I, jumping off the edge, they say dreamers never die. So come and fly, come and fly, come and fly away with me. We're rising, we're falling, we're making moves. We're climbing, we're soaring, 1,000 views. We're rising, we're falling, we're making moves. We're climbing, we're soaring, 1,000 views. Come and fly away, come and fly away, come and fly away with me. Come and fly away, come and fly away, come and fly away with me. Something's gonna bring the change, journeys we are meant to take. Something at the edge of space, calling us to fly away.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you for joining. And we got Cupcake Krista here. How are you, Krista?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. And who do we have with us here tonight? Looks like we got a special guest from Casper, Wyoming, Alicia. How are you?
Doing good.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us and being willing and taking your time out of your afternoon to tell us all about yourself and how you got into the sky in many different ways, it sounds like.
Let's see. It's kind of a long story. But I guess when it first started, my daughter was about 3 years old, and I was headed back from the grocery store, and we were watching this hot air balloon land in a soccer field, and I thought, oh, we should stop and just watch and check it out. And then the pilot had us come over, and he was like, hey, you can just help me pack up the balloon. And then my daughter loved it. She thought that was the greatest thing. And then I just started helping him crew, and he would take us up for rides occasionally. But at that point, I realized that I needed more than just the occasional ride. And so I went to go get my hot air balloon pilot's license. And then, I was flying hot air balloons for a couple years, and then got into free flight, and then got into powered paragliders, and I've flown a couple other things since then. But it's been a fun journey for sure.
Wow, it sounds like it. So you told us before the show, we were chatting briefly, that you're a mother of 3 girls.
Yeah, I've got one in college right now. She's 19. And then one that's learning how to drive. She's 15. And then my youngest is 11.
Okay. And you said they're all little redheads, huh?
They are. They're sassy little redheads.
Huh. So, have you always lived out in Wyoming?
Yeah, I was born and raised here. My family spent a little time in Utah. My dad moved there for work, so I lived there for about maybe 10 years. when I was younger. And then we moved back to Casper, Wyoming, and just lived here ever since. And I really like it here. So it's just, Wyoming is great. I've
So,
got, the mountain is tiny. You know, Colorado people would call it a hill, but we've got skiing and mountain biking all within 15 minutes. We've also got lakes that are within 30 minutes. So we can go, you know, pretty much have access to all sorts of outdoor activities. Paddle boarding. We've been doing a lot of paddle boarding this summer and hitting the river, which is about 10 minutes away. So
nice. So what's the weather like out there for you right now?
right now it's raining, and on the mountain, I think we're getting a little snow. So
Okay. So how high up are you in elevation? Do you know?
the mountain is around 8,500 feet, and then where I live, it's right around 5,500.
Okay. So, okay. So you said that you do powered paramotoring, you do free flight, and you've tried the glider. You said you'd like to get into that, correct? And you're
Um,
also a hot air balloon pilot.
Yeah, so my hot air balloon I bought, you know, way back when, and I actually sold the hot air balloon because I would like to get a little bit of a different system. Um, and then I also started to realize that my hot air ballooning has a very specific window for flight, especially around here because Casper is windy all the time. And so your flight window is in the morning. And I have a rule that I don't like to fly unless it's going to be 6 miles per hour or less, clear up until noon. I learned that the hard way. And so the window for flight with hot air ballooning is really small. And that's when, and it is hard. People just don't like to get out of bed at 6 a.m. when it's good to go fly hot air balloons. And so, and I need a crew of about 2 to 3 people to really get me in the air, drive a chase crew truck to pick me up. And then, so it's just a little bit harder to get the hot air balloon up and going. And so that's about 4 years ago, I decided to try free flight and started really enjoying free flight. I went down to Superfly and learned with Chris Santa Croce at Point of the Mountain. And that's just a blast, ridge soaring. And then I started doing some cross country. We don't really have good sites around Casper. We've got a good cross country site that is 2 hours away in Sheridan. And then ridge soaring, it's kind of hit and miss. The wind is almost never going the right direction for that. And so that's when I decided I needed a motor to put on my back, and I picked up paramotoring. And so I've been really enjoying that. The windows for that are a lot bigger. You can handle a little bit higher winds. I'm fairly comfortable up to about 8 to 10 miles per hour on the paramotor. And then you can fly morning and evening, so that works out better. And it's just me. I don't need a crew to get me in the air. So yeah, so I sold the hot air balloon to buy the paramotor. And I would like to, I did. So I don't have one at the moment. I do have one that I could fly if I wanted to. I just have to say, hey, I want to fly your hot air balloon. But and I would like to get another one down the road, but the system that I want is kind of pricey. So hold off on that for a little bit. But
So are you doing foot launch, or are you doing trike, or are you doing both?
well, I have a knee injury from skiing where I'm pretty much missing my ACL in the left knee. And so I do the trike launch just because my knee likes to kind of randomly give out on me. For the most part, it supports me, but I'd hate to land and have it just randomly decide it needs to give out on me. So I do use the trike. I've got the MacFly paramotor with their really lightweight trike, and I love that it's just tiny and lightweight. And so I can load up everything myself. I don't need anybody's help to load up all my gear. And it works really well for me. So
Okay. Krista, you got anything?
Any fly-ins you've attended or plan on?
I just started getting comfortable enough. I feel like powered paramotoring is new enough for me that I haven't been comfortable going to fly-ins, but I did go to a fly-in recently at Devil's Tower. That was kind of a small fly-in, and that was really neat. I got in a flight. I didn't quite make it to the tower, but I did get in a good flight. So I'd like to start going to more fly-ins, but a lot of them are kind of far away, so I'd have to figure out some travel method for getting there. So
Well, I know Eric and I are talking about going out to visit his family, and I'm not sure if they'll be in the state of Washington or in Nevada next summer. And so we'll maybe have to see if we can, on our way out or on the way back, meet up with you, because we plan to take our gear along also.
that would be awesome. We've got a lake reservoir here that I would like to go fly around. That's got a nice little airport that we can fly from that I think would be a lot of fun. Right, locally, we don't have the best launch sites. Yeah, we just don't have grassy parks. I see all these videos with grassy parks and great launch sites, and I'm a little jealous because we really don't have much of that around here. So, in fact, some of my earlier paramotor incidents are because our field just isn't that great. I had I've been through a few props, and it's because one time I had the wheels ran over a rock and kicked up a rock into the prop and shattered the prop. And then another one, a piece of wire came up and split my prop lengthwise. And so we just don't have the greatest fields for flying around here, but a little further away we do. So
Yeah, how far do you have to go for the nicer ones then?
Glendo is about an hour away, and let's see, sometimes we go up, there's a nice soccer field in Sheridan that's about an hour and a half away. That makes for a really good flight area.
So you said you've got a little airport there, but they don't really take care of it? Is that what you said?
Yeah, in Casper, sometimes it gets mowed, sometimes not, but mostly it's just prairie grass.
Yeah, that's kind of the small little town we're from. We went out to our little airport and we had grasshoppers, we had twigs in our lines, and we're like, we're never doing this again. And they're like, well, wait, we like you out here, and they've actually been doing a really good job at keeping it mowed, and they've got a nice manager out there now, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah, our local group is working on maybe planting some grass in a field we've got a local pilot that owns a field. And so we're kind of hoping to have something a little nicer next year. So
Good. So I've got a question that came to me, and someone wants you to explain free flight.
So there are two methods of free flight. You can do ridge soaring, and in that instance, you've got your ridge and the wind comes up and you've got a compression zone here, and you really need somewhere between 8 and 15 miles per hour for that to be a fun event. And so Point of the Mountain is your classic ridge soaring site. They've got the north and south side, and it's just a blast to go fly those areas. And then around here we have a tiny little site on the back side of our mountain. If the wind is going the right direction, then it's perfect, but it's pretty small and it fits maybe 3 or 4 pilots, and we have to be really careful to watch out for each other. But I got a ridge soaring flight on that site I was up there for about an hour to an hour and a half, and it was just awesome. And then there's cross country flying, and we've got a couple of cross country launch sites along the Bighorns. And I'm fairly new at that, but one of my buddies that lives up in Sheridan got a 6-hour flight just going, launching off this site, catching thermals, going to the next ridge, catching another thermal, and then soaring back and forth along the mountain range. And my last flight there was last weekend, and I was up for about an hour. So that
Great.
was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So, I know you were kind of explaining about the powered glider. I don't know if I'm powered.
Oh, the hang glider?
Yes. So explain to us how you got into that and where you're at with it and your instructor. That was pretty interesting.
So I've only flown once, and the gentleman who teaches that, he lives here, and he is also the world record holder for free flight hang gliding. So he did a cross country flight off of Whiskey Peak, and I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he landed in Montana, which is a long ways, and I'm not sure how long that flight was. I'd have to ask him, but a long flight. And then he let me try out his powered hang glider trike, and that was a lot of fun. There's the differences are, it seems like it just cuts through the wind, and it can handle some higher wind than the powered paragliders can handle. But they are definitely a bigger machine. So like the powered paraglider, I can take apart and stick in the back of my truck, and I'm good to go. And the trike, you would need an actual, like, he's got his own runway for his trike, and you'd need a little more space to haul something like that around, I think. But it was definitely a lot of fun, and maybe down the road I might pick that up too. We'll see. So
Nice. Well, keep us informed on that one.
yeah.
So Steve Clark with Clark Videos in the chat, he's asking, do you use the same wing for free flight as you would do with PPG? In other words, is it a universal wing? And if so, how many meters are you flying?
So my free flight wing is an Atlas 2, and it is, I got motor risers to put on it so that I can use it for both free flight and the paramotor. I'm definitely on the heavier side with the trike, and so it handles a little bit differently, but it works really pretty good. And I've also got a Falcon. It's a 24 meter, and that one's just for the trike, and I really like that wing quite a bit. It's got the 2D steering, and I'm liking it. It's taken me a little bit to get used to it, but I'm really liking it.
So we've got a question. What are motor risers?
So on a free flight wing, you have just your normal risers, and some models you can get motor specific risers with the trims that you can put onto a free flight wing and make it more paramotor friendly.
Okay. All right. And then Mark George from Pariswag, USA, down in Texas, he's got a question. When did you start paramotoring?
So paramotoring, I feel like I'm still new at the whole paramotoring thing, and I picked that up about a couple years ago. So I'm still getting the hang of it. Having those 2 incidences where I broke my props kind of shook me up a little bit, and so I'm taking it slower. I'm also taking everything fairly slow. Like, I feel like I have been ready to step up in wings in free flight for a little while, but I'm holding back just because I feel like I owe it to my girls to be as safe as possible. And definitely stick around as long as possible for them. So I'm taking everything really slow.
Right. Good idea. Krista?
So you do the free flights where you go through thermals, but with the with the paramotor, you want to stay away from thermals. So how did you do the switch? Is it a hard thing for you to do, or?
Actually, the Falcon is a cross country wing, and I got it so that I could do more thermal type flying with the paramotor. And so sometimes I'll go, especially if we're taking off a little earlier in the evening when the thermals are still popping, and I'm waiting for some of the other guys. If there's hardly any wind, it's harder for some of them to, get the wings up. And so it takes a little longer, and I'll go find a thermal and conserve fuel while I just stay up in a thermal. So I don't avoid thermals necessarily. I'd like to get to where I can fly a little more in thermals and do some more cross country stuff, but I'm not quite there yet.
So let me ask you this. How is your bump tolerance with powered?
So I feel like it's similar to, you definitely start gaining bump tolerance when you do cross country flying. And I've been gaining more and more bump tolerance by going a little bit later in the afternoon with the cross country flights. And so last weekend we had some pretty, I felt like they were some pretty intense thermals. And I actually got my first, it was about 40% deflation on my Atlas 2 wing. And so that definitely pushed me to my limit right now of bump tolerance. But I did, I've been really studying the right thing to do in those situations, and found that my brain just went straight to what I needed to do, which was lean, into the side that's open and continue to fly that side, and then try to work the other side out, because it didn't come out right away. And so I actually had to pump the brakes, and I was about to reach up and grab that stabilo line to get it out, and it finally popped back open, and I was good to go, and managed to get out of it without any kind of a spin or anything like that. So
Wow. Bill H in the chat is asking, do you have how many flight hours and motor and frame?
Let's see. So I keep different logs for different things. So I'll have to pull that up here.
And do you use certain apps?
I just keep an Excel spreadsheet in Google Docs that I can access from my phone. And let's see here. So paragliding hours, I actually have it in minutes. So 895 minutes paragliding, free flight. And then hot air ballooning, I've got 2,685 minutes. And on the paramotor, so that one, I don't have a total for yet. But I don't have a lot of time on the paramotor yet. So let's see.
Okay. Tony Marzano from Las Vegas is asking, do you need a license to fly the powered hang glider?
It depends on the weight of it. So yeah, it just depends on how much it weighs. If you get a really lightweight powered hang glider, then I think you're good.
That'd be considered something like the PPC, the parachute or something maybe? Because I know they have to be licensed.
Haven't done a whole lot of research on that. I've got my pilot's license with the hot air balloon rating. And I know that if you go over a certain weight on those ultralights, you do have to have a license, but I'm not sure what that weight is.
Okay. Krista?
Sorry, my dog is interrupting us. I know. So how many schools did you go to? This was Tony H's question also. Since you do 3 different kinds of flights, did you go to 3 different schools or same school?
Yeah, I did. So I learned with Michael Bowens down in Park City and for hot air ballooning. And then I learned with Chris Santa Croce at Superfly in Draper for the free flight. And I've also taken some XC courses with Ken Hooden Jorgensen, who was really awesome for some cross country stuff. And then I would like to go and start taking some acro courses because I'd like to get into some more acro. So that's on my future goals list.
So like an SIV or?
I, kind of, but I'd like to focus more on
Getting past micro mini wingovers.
yeah, stuff that's more intentional and doing more fun things rather than defensive. But I would like to do some SIV as well. So yeah, it's all on my list.
All right. So Deweese Milstead from Mississippi is asking, which one of those which one of the sports do you prefer?
I usually prefer whichever one I'm doing in the moment.
Okay, so tell us which one you feel most safe with.
Let's see. I would say that I feel most safe with the free flight.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I actually carry 2 reserves. So I've got one that's a front mount reserve that is my flight deck, and then I've got an under the seat reserve. So, but I feel like in free flight, you're actually flying higher and the goal is to be higher. And when you are higher, you have more response time. So to me, that feels safer. Whereas with the powered paramotor, I like to fly lower. I don't like to be high as much. It's not quite as interesting. And so I feel like it's a little less safe because you don't have as much response time, to throw a reserve or something if something goes wrong. So
have you had any scary instances with paragliding, hot air balloon, or power?
Yeah, my scariest experiences have been with the hot air balloon, surprisingly enough. You would think that it's safer, and it can be safe, but I was with one of my mentors and we were going to do a kind of a cross country flight over the top of the Ferris Mountains. So we started on one side and it was just a perfectly calm day, and it was forecasted to be calm all day. But we had gotten up to the top of the mountain, and over the top of the mountain, the winds had started to pick up and created this sheer layer that was a higher up wind shear that kind of came down the mountain, and then a slower wind layer down below. And so we had started to go down in the hot air balloon and get ready to land, but that wind shear created this interesting thing that happens if this is the balloon. It creates this little negative pressure zone right here that causes false lift. So all of a sudden your hot air balloon is going up and you're not putting any heat in it. And so at some point you have to hit this equilibrium and you're going to go back down. And if you're not putting heat in the hot air balloon, you're going to go back down really fast. So we were going down really fast and came down, and the winds were still going pretty good, about 30 miles an hour. And the hot air balloon, hit the ground and put a nice little triangle in the middle of this dirt road, and then came up and pendulumed and then hit and then slid across the prairie for about a good 50 yards before we finally came to a stop. And that hot air balloon just collapsed and came to a stop. And I had and I think I don't feel fear as much as someone maybe should feel fear, because I had gotten up on the risers kind of little bit out of the balloon, just ready for the ride, like, okay, here we go. And we were coming in, and I actually found it to be kind of fun, but afterward realized that it should have been really scary. And so, and I've had another instance where it was dead calm on the surface layers, and I had inflated my balloon. I'd gotten up about maybe 50 feet off this park and hit another layer, and it just took me all the way across town within 15 minutes. My crew driver looked up and I was just gone. He's like, I don't know where you went. You were just gone. And I had to get on the radio and tell him where I was landing, and that I was landing in about 5 minutes. So, and that one was another one where, you know, I came in and the balloon just hit and slides, and we call them high wind landings. They're not my favorite, and they're a little hard on the balloon, but it happens. Casper's just kind of windy, and that's where my rule that it has to be 6 miles per hour or less until at least noon. That's where that rule came in, is because we would get these calm mornings and it would be forecasted to be calm up until 11, and then all of a sudden that wind would pick up sooner than you expected, and it's just, you end up with a high wind landing. So I've got a lot of experience with that, which is nice, but it's not my favorite landing, and those are probably my scariest experiences.
Wow.
So,
You're one crazy lady for not having fear.
well, there's fear for sure.
Hang on, you went to mute. Uh-oh, we lost her.
So.
There you go. Say that last part. There's fear for sure. What?
Definitely fear, but I think it's less than your average. Like my family, I'll have conversations with my family, and they can't figure out where I get this from. So I don't have anybody in my family that flies. We don't really have a history of anybody that flies. And my girls aren't interested in it. So it's just, I think I'm kind of an anomaly.
Exactly. All right. Mark George from Pariswig, USA is asking, do they use ballistic parachutes on the powered hang gliders? Yes. Okay. All right. Will Fly from North Carolina, the one we warned you about, is asking, hang on, I got to read his question before I say it out loud. You're involved in quite a few sports. Is there another one that you would like to take up in the future? Good one, Will.
Yeah, I'm trying not to pick up any new sports, although I did just a couple weeks ago. I learned how to ride a motorcycle. So
awesome. Nice. What kind of motorcycle?
I don't have one yet, but I'm looking at a Triumph Scrambler.
Nice. All right. Angela Preslick from Las Vegas, Nevada is asking, do your children want to follow you in your footsteps?
So they don't. Maybe they will someday. I'm not really sure. There's part of me that is like, would be happy if they experience the same thing because I love it so much. But on the other hand, it is a dangerous sport. And so not having them get into it, I think I would worry a lot less. So I'm okay with whatever direction they decide to go.
Right. All right. Krista, do you got anything?
Have you thrown your reserve yet?
I haven't thrown that yet. Thank goodness. I'm okay with that too.
We do have a question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, with hot air ballooning, I had this fantastic mentor, and he passed away the year before last. I was really sad to lose him, and I actually haven't really flown much in the way of hot air balloons since he passed away. But when he was here, he decided one time that I really needed to learn this skill that's called bomb drop skills, so that I can stick my landings in any type of situation, whether it's high winds or not high winds. And so he takes me, and this is one of the only times we talked about that fear. This is one of the only times where I've actually been really afraid while I was in the air. So he takes me up in the hot air balloon, and we go up about 50 feet or so, and he says, okay, now just let it drop. Don't put any hot air in it. So you vent the hot air out. Don't put any hot air in it until right before you hit the ground, just to barely slow your landing down. So I did that, and I let the balloon come down, and I just kind of gently set it down. And he goes, no, that's not how you do that. Let me show you how you do this. So he vents the air out at 50 feet. We come down, and we were coming down so fast, I thought we were going to die. Like, we hit the ground, and then the outside of the balloon came down around the basket and touched the ground around the basket, and then came back up again. And he goes, so that's how you do a bomb drop landing. And I went, oh my goodness, okay, I'll work on that. And we worked on it for about another hour, and I finally got to where I was close, but there's no way I could come down like that and still have my heart beat at the same rate that it would normally beat. So
All right, so we got a question in the chat from PPG Rachel. She was last week's guest. Have you done any skydiving before? And if so, did you like it?
skydiving. I feel like with skydiving, it just hasn't even been really an interest or on my list, because you're only in the air for, a couple minutes, whereas paragliding, especially free flight, you're in there for a long time. And so I don't know, it just hasn't really come up as an opportunity, so I really haven't done it. Or
Well,
it's not.
We can hook you up with a gal that was 2 weeks ago guest. Because she wants me to go, and just say that you're me. So we have another question, and you do not have to answer this, but we're going to throw Walter from Australia under the bus. Is there a hubby involved? Because guys are asking for a friend.
I do have a very serious boyfriend for about 7 or 8 years now. So, and
Okay.
he does a lot of this stuff with me. So he does the free flight, and then I talked him into getting a motor, but he's not as interested in the paramotor stuff. So
That was one of my questions, is how big of a group do you have out there to go flying with?
Our little group has, like, in Casper, there are maybe 4 or 5 pilots. And then we often go up and fly with the guys from Sheridan. And sometimes we'll go to Sheridan and we get some people that come down from Billings and from Buffalo that will fly with us too. So, we can usually get a good little group together to fly, whether it's free flight or paramotor, because almost everybody does both along the little region. And so we just look at the weather and see what the weather, looks good for, and we can usually get a good little group of about 5 to 10 pilots together, depending on the activity. So.
Okay. Krista, you got anything?
What drove you to want to fly?
I think about that quite a bit, but when I was little, I was constantly looking at the sky, sitting in class and looking out at the clouds and daydreaming. And then we had a trampoline when I was little, and I would take the trampoline cover, and when it was windy, I would jump up and let the cover catch the wind and float me off the trampoline. And so I think that was my early paragliding experience, was the trampoline. And then I've just always really been fascinated by it. And then watching the hot air balloons, we have a festival in town every year, and watching those, I just loved them. So, and then I had the opportunity and I just took it. I like to say,
Right.
yeah.
Good motto.
I am going to try and share the pictures you have sent and see if I can get this okay. And if you want to explain them. Are you able to see this?
Oh yeah, that one. So that's our ridge soaring site. And this particular day, there wasn't enough wind, and so it was just a little short hike and fly. And it was right at sunset, and my wing is white. And so as soon as I came around the corner, the sun just lit my wing up, and it's just the coolest effect.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter actually, you can't see it here. I don't know if I have a picture, but there's a drawing of it's a koi fish on the underside of my wing, and my daughter did that artwork.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
And Chris Santa Croce had it printed on paraglider material, and then I applied it to the wing, and it turned out really neat.
Nice. All right. And then, how about this? Not seeing it. Hang on, bear with me 1 second. I thought I had this down. Able to see anything yet? No. Dang it. I don't know. Any other questions in the chat at all, or Krista? Well, I try to figure this.
I'm sure there is. Hold on 1 second. It's from Clark Video. Being that you don't have that many hours on PPG, are you still using a beginner wing? Or is it the Gen Falcon?
No, I'm actually on more of an intermediate wing. The Falcon is an intermediate wing. But I've got enough free flight hours that I feel fairly comfortable on it. It was a little bit of a learning curve though, so but it is more of an intermediate wing. I'm not sure that it's rated.
All right, hang on. I'm going to try to share this again. I'm hoping I've got it.
I think we've got all those, yeah.
It's not. What's
Somebody
making that noise?
was for the bomb drop landings on the hot air balloon, and the reason for those is to stick your landing. Like if you see a landing space and you don't have any landing spaces ahead of that, and you need to stick that landing, you like have to land in that spot, then that allows you to land exactly where you intend to land.
All right, I'm interested in this one picture because I'm trying to understand you are anything coming up? Darn it. So you're an artist?
Yeah, art actually has played a pretty good role in funding my hobbies, which is nice. So
Nice. Well, are you able to share any of these? Because for some reason now and are either one of you having like internet or something going on? Because we got feedback.
Yeah. We-
We're getting feedback.
Yeah.
Looks like somebody asked about my favorite place to fly.
Okay.
And I'd have to say flying off of Red Grade and Sheridan is probably my favorite place to fly. And then second favorite place to fly would be the north side at Point of the Mountain, especially when I get a chance to bench up.
All right. That's Lori Fisher. She was also a past flyer also, or a past guest on here. Sorry about that. Deweese is asking what you do for a regular job.
I am a real estate appraiser.
Okay. So that also takes me into that you also know one of my friends that I've met through this sport, Bonnie Parker and little Wyatt.
We're both appraisers, so we get to geek out on, things that most people would not care about.
And you've also gone to the same instructor, right, for paragliding?
Yeah, we've both been to Superfly for some paragliding instruction. So.
Okay, yep. So if you can convince Bonnie to come on someday, because she's too cheap.
Jade, we still have feedback.
Yeah, I know, I can hear it too. Sounds like a dog is licking the microphone.
It's repeating. I just
All right, so if anybody has anything in the background, I'm checking. I don't have anything open. Clark Video is asking, what motor do you have?
I have the MacFly Monster 185, my 20.
All right.
I like.
And I don't think Will Fly was here, but he's asking if you've been to any fly-ins, if you can go over that.
Yeah, just a little fly-in at Devil's Tower. So I'd like to go to more fly-ins, but a lot of them are kind of far away for me. So it would be a lot of driving.
Okay. PPG Rachel, she wants to know if you've got plans to go to Salt Lake City fly-in.
Bonnie tried to talk me into going to the last one, and I wasn't able to make it work with my work schedule. But I'll try to get it on my schedule for the next time, because that would be a lot of fun.
All right. And Tony Marzano, he would like to know if you hunt, since you're in a great part of the country for it.
That's another one of those hobbies that I should probably not pick up. My family, I have quite a few family members that hunt, and so they do that, and they actually, I have a nephew that got an elk, and my brother-in-law got an elk. So, and they do the bow hunting thing. If I were going to hunt, I would bow hunt, but my time is limited, and so I have to be kind of picky.
Mm. Yeah, so I also had grown up hunting with my dad and my uncles and a couple of my cousins, and always wanted to try bow hunting, but I have not done that yet. So, all right. So we got about 12 minutes left. Christy, you got any other questions? Guys in the chat, got any more questions?
So you were talking about being an artist. What do you draw?
I really have been doing aerial cloudscapes with they're chalk pastel, so it's kind of like a nice refined sidewalk chalk on sandpaper. So I've got a couple of examples on my Facebook site. It's hard to know, what what they look like unless you can see them. But
Awesome. Okay.
so I think you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Now I can hear you.
Question is, what size wing do you fly?
So, for higher wind conditions, I have a little 19-meter Yeti that I like to fly. For soaring and like a hike and fly. And then I've got I think it's a 22-meter Atlas 2 for free flight. And then it's got the paramotor risers if I want to use it for the paramotor. And then I've got the Falcon, which is a 24-meter.
Okay. How many flights do you think you're at right now, paramotoring?
Quite a few. Probably around somewhere between 20 and 30 flights.
Okay. So do you go up for like an hour at a time, half hour, 5 minutes?
Usually
kind of-
about an hour to an hour.
Half an hour to an hour?
I like the evening flights right before sunset.
Okay. Your voice is going in and out. Like when you first start talking, we're having a hard time hearing you. So I don't know what's going on there. Bill H says, Alicia, would you recommend PPG pilots take free flying lessons? He says, say yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would be really struggling if I hadn't taken free flight first. I think I may actually have given up on PPG if I hadn't taken free flight first.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like it's nerve-wracking even now for me to do the PPG, and I have to work through my nerves just to go do PPG, and I don't have those nerves with the free flight. I did in the beginning a little bit, but I feel like, and I'm not even sure exactly why it is, but I feel like it's a bit more nerve-wracking for me to do the powered paragliding.
See, and I'm just the opposite. I fly trike. I have a motor, which I was taught. I take off from flat land. You jump off of a cliff without a motor. So a little bit of convincing on your part for me. Rachel, PPG Rachel wants to know, what advice do you have for PPG pilots who want to learn the paragliding?
I would definitely go to Point of the Mountain because you get more for the money if you go to this site where you can fly morning and evening almost every day, and to just go spend a couple of intensive weeks learning this skill. And it's a lot of fun. It's definitely worth taking, a vacation and heading over there to learn free flight. And they've got some great schools. White Cloud is a really good school. Superfly is a really good school. They've got a lot of really good schools over there. So,
all right, there you go, Rachel. She's in Cincinnati, Ohio, so we'll tell her to get out there. Will Fly is asking, any interest in becoming an instructor for any of the sports you're involved in?
So, and that's something I've thought about, but I have to admit that I would have a really hard time if someone got injured. I would blame myself for a very long time. And I think I would have a hard time reconciling with that. And so being an instructor may not be for me.
Okay. All right. So Krista, you got anything else, or Shane or Eric or any of the guys in the chat?
What apps do you use for your wind?
What was that?
What apps do you use before you go flying? Wind's good for you.
So this is where I really get nerdy on you. I've got some apps that I love to use, and I use quite a few different ones. I always carry an InReach with me pretty much everywhere I go. And then the app that goes with that is, it's Ever, I'll have to look that up, but I can't remember exactly what that one was called. And then for cross country, I use XC Track to track my cross country flights. And then I use an app or a website called SkySight. And that one is a really neat website for thermals and that sort of flying. Then I use one called Windy. That's a pretty typical, everybody seems to really like Windy. And then one of my all-time favorites though is not an Apple app, and that's another reason why I really like my Android. We were talking about this earlier, but it's called FlowX, and it's one of the neatest weather apps that I've ever come across. I really, really like it. And then when I need to start zooming in on the weather and get some real time data, I'll use Wind Alert. And then for like a couple of weeks ago, I had to hike out of the foothills of the Bighorns and try to find the closest road so that I could get a ride. And for that, I really like Onyx Hunt. I feel like they have the best maps and the best, data all in one place for figuring out where I am. So that's the list of my apps for the most part.
A lot of apps there.
Yeah, very good. I wrote a couple of those down. Thank you. Sean Nafsker is asking, what's the most memorable moment you had in the sky?
A good question. Let's see. A lot of them are really memorable, but so my most recent one was this last cross-country flight. I hit 8,400 feet, and that was really epic for me. I know it's not super high for most of the cross-country pilots out there, but for me, that was a new high altitude and just definitely a really neat experience. I think my most memorable moments are the firsts. When I have a first for something, then those become the most memorable moments.
All right. I see somebody snuck in our chat beforehand, so just let us finish up, okay? All right. So we'll just finish out here. Eric has added the code to join in. If Alicia is willing to stick around, you guys can ask the questions. She can do so, and we encourage you guys to join in with us and ask questions if you'd like, that you weren't able to ask during the show. Alicia, do you have any social media sites that you are on right now that people can find you at?
Let's see, I'm on Facebook as Alicia Lynne, and then I'm on Instagram, and I can't remember what that one was. I think it's Captain Alicia Lynne or Captain Ali. It's Captain something. So.
All right. So I want to thank you again for coming on, and Krista for also helping out. Please, give us a thumbs up if you can. We'd really appreciate it. And if you guys want, like I said, join in. Also, please join us every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. If you got any friends, any gals that you know that are in the sky in any type of sport, please have them get a hold of us. And we'd like to have them share their story too. Again, we'll see you next week, and thanks for joining, guys. Have a good night and fly safe.